had their connections in DC.
Connections, right. Yeah.
And oh yeah, and then what was it? Her great-great-grandfather?
Her great
something?
Was it 2 greats or 3
I don't know.
greats?
One of her
Might be 3
ancestors
greats down the line.
One of her ancestors created Fleischmann's yeast, which all of us in North America are familiar with.
Yeah. No,
quite
it's quite
family.
the interesting lineage. Yeah. So back to the Wikipedia, it says the decline of Theranos began in 2015 when a series of journalistic and regulatory investigations revealed doubts about the company's technology claims and whether Holmes had misled investors and the government. In 2018, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, charged Theranos and Holmes with deceiving investors by massive fraud through false or exaggerated claims about the accuracy of the company's blood testing technology. Holmes settled the charges by paying $500,000 fine, returning 18.9 million shares to the company, relinquishing her voting control of Theranos, and being barred from serving as an officer or director of a public company for 10 years.
10 years.
This is what I think, is it all started to unravel. So let's set the baseline. She claimed that, this new company and the technology they were inventing was going to be able to screen for any number of blood-related diseases just from a finger prick of blood.
Yeah, in their nanotainer, which is container, but instead of con, they call it nano. But apparently it wasn't useful. So you were just giving drops of blood for no reason.
Right. And so essentially what they were doing was they were making these claims, not as future state claims, mind you. They were making these claims as this is what we're capable of now, today. Right. And as they started to get interest in their technology, in their company, they would take these samples of blood and then they would use their competitors' devices to do the screening and then present the results back as if they had done it with their new invention.
Called the Edison something, right?
Right. The Edison, right.
Yeah.
Problematic. Very problematic.
Absolutely.
So this went on and they started to get into all the right, all the buzz that you want, right? They were able to open up, locations in Walgreens across the US, right?
That's
people
insane.
could come
that
in
partnership
and do quick screenings, right? She was able to leverage her relationships, right? And so that essentially was the claim. And they got so much attention. All these important people that we were talking about just now were on her board. And even her facilities were, toured by a certain Joseph R. Biden Jr. when he was VP under Barack Obama.
Oh my God.
Right. So that's how much buzz they were getting.
If I may add on to that.
And
when VP Joe Biden toured, they created a fake lab for him to walk through. A completely fake laboratory for him to walk through. That's insane.
So if you're going to question, was this a witch hunt or was there intentional deceit and falsehood and falsifying of facts and things?
The fake lab, I feel like, clear.
Right. At that point, when you're putting together the fake lab,
a fake lab is a smoking gun. I would say a smoking gun is a fake lab at this point.
There you go. So, they did all these things, right? And it took, this guy, John Carreyrou, I was mentioning him earlier for the book Bad Blood. He started to write about them. And, of course, they went at him with everything they had. They threatened him financially and legally and all that stuff.
Yep, they went after him.
He wouldn't back down. And thank goodness, because, this then was the first string that was pulled, and then it unraveled a huge mess. First of all, she got in with this guy who was her COO, and his name was Ramesh Balwani.
Ramesh Balwani, who was a
Ramesh, right?
Pakistani-born Hindu who then migrated to India,
right?
Who then migrated to the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they were involved in a secret romantic affair, right? For most of their co-working experience at Theranos. So again, it's just all kinds of things were going on. She would later claim that he was the real brain behind the thing, and that he was controlling her and domineering her.
He was 20 years older than her too. And
right.
She was 19 when they launched Theranos.
Yes.
So she was 19 and he was 39.
Did we mention that she dropped out of Stanford? She dropped out.
Oh yeah, she dropped
that's
out.
What you do when you're going to be
her college money to set up the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So again, this is the issue, right? Is you have literally the world is your oyster, right? You have parents who are well connected. You have people constantly telling you how smart you are. You're going to pull some stuff like this, right? You're just going to pull some stuff like this. Oh, and it helps that you're white in America. Then you're really going to pull some stuff like this. So here we are with this person who had no business doing this stuff. I don't doubt that she was brilliant, that she was intelligent.
She was sharp, but like at 19, she had 2 years of undergrad max.
Right.
She did. Right. Then again, I have met people who are that intelligent once or twice. I still wouldn't say they should be starting companies of biotech.
Hey, I mean, that's what you do, right? If you want to do Facebook or Microsoft, or you're going to drop out of school, you're going to drop out of a good school at that, right?
Yeah.
So here we are, right, talking about this stuff. And this woman, her priorities were just, I don't know. They were just off, man. She would put an inordinate amount of effort into looking and sounding like something. She started
the way she'd like drop her voice so it was deeper.
And she dropped her voice several octaves to sound more commanding, and she would talk like this, and she would say Theranos is, you should listen to some of her interviews, right? It's funny to listen to.
Really?
Her family, they do claim
that's her actual voice.
That's her real voice.
Yeah.
But other people who've been in her circles will tell you sometimes when she forgets, she speaks in her actual voice.
It's like Batman and Bruce Wayne. It's Batman and Bruce Wayne. Right. It's like Alfred.
Right.
So you're using the gravity voice again. When you're not wearing the mask.
Alfred, I need my socks.
Sir, you can just speak normally. It's just the two of us now, sir.
Just use the Bruce voice, sir. Yes. Alfred, could I have the socks, please?
Alfred, the bat socks. Alfred, I can't find my socks. Alfred, where are the bat socks?
You would definitely have bat socks. There must be. They're merino wool and Kevlar blend is my call. Merino wool and Kevlar blend. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
No, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would totally make sense.
Yeah. Whatever you can dream up makes sense. But listen, so she was definitely in this environment where there was a lot of emphasis on looking and sounding and speaking a certain way. She definitely was deliberate and intentional.
She was
about
like a huge
herself.
fan of like Steve Jobs and was wearing the the black turtlenecks.
Exactly.
And all that. Yeah.
Exactly. So she was very deliberate about modeling herself after her idols, top of which apparently was Steve Jobs. And so she was, one might say, more interested in the image and the projection than actually evaluating honestly the probability of pulling off what she was claiming she could do. And when it became increasingly apparent that there was no path forward for what she was claiming she could do,
Right.
She was so in love with the image that she had thus far been able to create that she was willing to now do anything to hold on to that. And that's when you get into trouble, because there's nothing wrong with having a dream, an outlandish dream. I mean, thank goodness. I mean, humanity thanks today all the people who dare to dream about things that were at one point considered impossible.
Sure.
Right? So there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
The problem starts when you have created a hype, and that hype has granted you a certain status in society that when it is time to use that same energy to be honest and forthright and tell people, oh, look, you know what? I thought this could work. Unfortunately, it's not going to work, or it's not going to work as soon as we thought it was going to. But instead, you are so terrified of, even any sort of vulnerability or the appearance of any cracks in your armor that you will bend and break the rules to retain that status. And, things like fake labs start to happen, right?
Sure.
Things like, using other people's equipment and claiming that you did, the evaluations and screenings on your own technology, right? That's when stuff like that starts to happen. So that's when you go wrong. Would you agree with that sort of broad assessment, Sibel?
Yeah, I think so. I would have to agree with that. That usually when you start,
because there's nothing wrong with dreaming, right? I mean, that's what we're all here for,
when
right?
You start,
exactly.
When you start becoming dishonest about realities, when things
there you
go
go.
bad.
There you go. There you go.
I do find it interesting, speaking about that in 2015. We saw a Stanford professor who wrote in the Journal of the American Medical Association, often called JAMA, that no peer-reviewed research from Theranos had ever been published, which is very strange for a biotech or medtech company.
Right.
And that in May 20...
You know how they did that for the longest time? They kept, sorry to cut you off. Please, they kept saying that they were protecting proprietary secrets, right?
Sure.
Company secrets. And so they were not going to participate in any peer-reviewed stuff, or they were not going to do any public announcements and stuff until much, much later. And then all of a sudden she was everywhere. She was on Forbes. She was at the nightly shows and all that. She was there for the glamour, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, please continue.
No, this is why one of the most powerful processes humanity's ever created is the peer review scientific consensus process.
Exactly.
It's one of
there's
the
most, no BS in there, right?
It's it does two things. One is that it forces a heavy analysis of anything being put forward, and two, it forces things not to be missed. So even if you have an idea that's really just crazy and out there, like let's say, for example, Feynman or whatever, one of the geniuses who changed the way physics is done, it was submitted for peer review, and then when the math held up, the math held up. That's sort of so it allows us to not just dismiss things as well. So it's a two-way street, and it allows us to have this consensus of honesty amongst experts.
Absolutely.
And then in May 2015, we saw that the University of Toronto professor analyzed Theranos technology and concluded that most of the company's claims are exaggerated. At which point, Holmes decided to invite U.S. Vice President Joe Biden to tour the facility.
Right.
Talk about having the links
so instead
to being
of
able to invite the vice president to a lab.
So instead of fixing the issue, you counter with a PR stunt, right? I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Because why not?
I'm reminded of how there is some talk currently of child slavery in Coco, and someone just changed the way one of their mascots looks.
Distract the people, razzle dazzle. Exactly. Yeah. So again, this cannot surprise too many people. But the reason why she is so fascinating and remains so fascinating is that, she was on a tear here, right? She was rising meteorically, and she